Are you planning a trip to Seoul and are looking for the perfect 4-day itinerary? Well, in this video is for you. So anyways, we're going to start off with day number 1, and this day will be the day when you arrive in Seoul. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you're going to get while you're still at the airport and how to get to your hotel. Now the way I'm going to structure this itinerary is that day 1 is going to be the day where you arrive in Seoul, and then day 2, 3 and 4 are going to be the days where you have full days filled with activities, sights to see and foods to eat. But anyways, for day 1, this is going to be the day when you arrive in Seoul. Now this can be early in the morning, in the middle of the day, or even late in the afternoon. But no matter when you arrive, there's a couple things to get done while you're still at the airport. Now no matter when you arrive, take this day to get yourself some essentials, figure out the transportation system, get to your hotel and of course try some good food. Now firstly, once you land at whatever airport you're landing on, probably Incheon Airport, before leaving the airport you will have to get yourself at least 3 essentials. Firstly is to get yourself a SIM card, and I got myself an eSIM from LGY and they were pretty good and pretty cheap, so I would recommend those, but there are plenty of options at the airport. Now secondly is to get yourself some cash. Now most places in Seoul will accept card, however street food stalls will only accept cash, at least usually. And having cash is always just nice, just in case something happens to your international bank card. And thirdly is to get yourself a T-money card, as in a transportation card, and this card will be crucial and very important for using buses, underground trains and public transportation. But anyways, now that you've gotten yourself these essentials, you can either head on a bus, which is right outside the airport if you're landing at Incheon Airport, or you can go down the staircases that should be right next to the doors right before you leave the airport. And when you go down these staircases, they will show you how to get to the metro system. That way you can get yourself on a high-speed train into Seoul. But anyways, once you get to Seoul, find your hotel, drop off your stuff, relax a bit, and then just figure out public transportation, explore the area you're staying in, figure out some good restaurants, and just try some food in general, and just soak in the atmosphere of Seoul. And try to make sure to get a good night of sleep, because tomorrow we have a lot to see. So anyways, you've just woken up, it's day 2 and you're finally ready to start exploring Seoul. So anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so it's our first full day to explore and we're going to start off with the one and only Gyeongbokgung Palace. So anyways, firstly get yourself on a bus over to Gwanghwamun Square and then walk forwards towards the famous Gyeongbokgung Palace. And when you're at the square, you can also see the famous statue of King Sejong and Admiral Yi Sun-sin. However, the main attraction obviously lies a bit further back, and that is Gyeongbokgung Palace. Now this temple was built back in 1395 and it was once the main royal palace of the Joseon dynasty, and it's a stunning intro into Korean history. Now I would recommend you spend at least 2 hours there, as there is so much to explore, so make sure you check out all the different buildings, temples, houses, small roads, as it is just so incredible to explore and look at. So once you're done at the Gyeongbokgung Palace, you're gonna exit out of the northeastern part of the Gyeongbok area and enter the National Folk Museum of Korea. Now in this museum you can wander inside and learn a lot about Korean history, and they have lots of different exhibits and things to look at. However, even if you don't want to do that, you can also just wander around outside and admire the view of the buildings, which is also just great in general. Now you can spend a lot of time here if you want to, but I would recommend you set off at least between 45 minutes and an hour and a half, which should probably be enough. But anyways, once you finish exploring this place, you will probably be quite hungry, so I would recommend you find a nice restaurant to relax at and enjoy some food. Because once you're done eating, we're gonna head over and explore the final thing of this day, which is the Bucheon Hanok village. Now this beautiful old traditionally built village dates back to over 600 years, and there's so much to explore, so make sure to set up plenty of time to walk around. Although make sure to keep in mind that this village closes at 5 PM, so make sure to arrive early to have plenty of time to explore. And I would recommend you set off at minimum 1 hour to explore, but you can easily spend more time here, but 1 hour should probably be around enough. And there is actually quite a lot of Hanok style cafes, shops and restaurants here, so if you want to grab yourself a dinner at the Bucheon Hanok village, you can also do that. Now after exploring this village, I would recommend you just get back to your hotel, relax a bit and get over the jet lag you're probably feeling. So what you can do now is just explore a bit on your own and enjoy some good food. However, if you have some time left over of the day and you want to see one more thing, you can head back to Gyeongbokgung Palace, but instead of entering the actual temple, head west and enter the National Palace Museum of Korea. Now this museum showcases the royal artifacts from the Joseon dynasty, offering a glimpse into the lives, culture and craftsmanship of the Koreans' former kings and queens. And I must say, this was honestly one of my favorite museums in all of Seoul, so I would highly recommend you take the time to check this out if you have time at the end of the day, and of course if you're up for another museum. But anyways, even if you aren't going back to the Gyeongbokgung Palace to check out the National Palace Museum of Korea, I would still recommend you head over to the Gyeongbokgung Palace around 10 PM at night, because at 10 PM there is a really cool light show / display thing that happens at the Gyeongbokgung Palace, as in at the entrance of it. And it's just so incredible to look at and it's so enjoyable, so this is definitely something you have to do in the afternoon. But anyways, when you're done with day 2, again, make sure to get a good night of rest and get over your potential jet lag. Because for day 3, we have even more activities and an even bigger packed day. So anyways, let's just head over to day 3. So anyways, we're going to start off this day at the Jungmyo Shrine. Now before I talk about this, an important thing to know is that you can only enter this via tour, so make sure to plan a little bit ahead and show up here at an appropriate time. The English tours start at 10, 12, 14 and 16 o'clock. However, you could of course enter either a Chinese tour or a Korean tour, which goes in between. Now Jungmyo Shrine is a very quiet and quite a different palace compared to the other ones, which makes it a perfect start to this day. It was built in 1394 as a Confucian shrine for the royal family, and is where they used to perform ancestral rituals for the kings and queens of the Joseon dynasty. Now the temples here are also quite different as they are short and long, which makes visiting this area so much more special, and during this tour you will also get to learn so much about Korean temple history. And this tour should take somewhere between 1 and 1.5 hours. But anyways, once you're done at the Jungmyo Shrine, I would recommend you head over to the Insadong Hanok village to grab yourself something to eat and something good to drink. Now the Insadong Hanok village is a cool, more market-like Hanok village filled with shops and cafes in traditionally built house designs. And it's so cool to just walk around there and explore. So anyways, stop at a cafe or two and enjoy a nice drink and maybe something to eat. And you will find so many traditionally built restaurants and cafes that are surprisingly peaceful. But anyways, once you're done at this village, you're gonna head over for a quick walk over to the Changdeokgun Palace. Now this is another one of Seoul's big palaces, and it has a very different vibe than Gyeongbokgun. Changdeokgun Palace was built back in 1405, and unlike the others, it's built in more with nature. It's tucked into the hillside with trees and small paths instead of big open squares. And it's full of nature, temples and so many incredible sights, and it's a massive complex with so much to explore, so make sure to set up plenty of time to explore, because this place is honestly so unbelievably stunning and there's so much to see here. Now it's a very big area slash temple, yet it feels way more quiet, small and peaceful than some of the other bigger temples, like for example Gyeongbokgun. And I would recommend you set off at least 1.5 hours or 2 hours to explore this area. Now once you're done at this temple, don't leave yet, as there is another cool thing you can explore here. So anyways, then head to the northeastern part of this complex and get yourself a ticket into the famous secret garden. Now you will also need to join a tour to enter, however once you enter via tour you're actually free to just leave and walk around on your own. Now this garden is so incredibly beautiful and peaceful, and it's one of those places that kind of makes you forget that you're in a giant city, and it's definitely worth taking the extra time to explore. And I would set off around an extra hour, maybe 1.5 hours to explore this massive garden. And then once you're done exploring the hidden garden, get yourself a ticket to enter Changdeokgun Palace. And the entrance to this temple will be just to the right of the secret garden entrance. However, if you're feeling hungry, you can of course leave this palace and grab yourself some food before entering. But anyways, once you're ready to explore, Changdeokgun Palace was built back in 1483 and it's another one of Seoul's big historical royal palaces. And it's known for its beautiful gardens, beautiful architecture and insanely peaceful atmosphere right in the heart of a big city. And there was surprisingly few people here, even being right next to two other famous attractions. It felt a lot more peaceful, and I would set off between another 1 and 2 hours to explore this. So anyways, now after all this walking around, you're probably getting quite hungry again, so anyways we're gonna head over to the Gwangjang Market. Now this market has been around since 1905 and it's one of Seoul's oldest traditional markets. However, this also makes it one of the busiest, and yeah, it's kind of chaotic and overly expensive, but it's still a cool place to experience and a cool place to eat some dinner. And make sure to check out plenty of the food stalls, as there are so many serving so much good food. So anyways, after all this exploring, get yourself back to your hotel and enjoy a good night of rest, because tomorrow we of course have more things to see. So anyways, it's day 4, you have just woken up, so anyways let's enjoy a final day in Seoul and explore even more great attractions. Now we're gonna start this day at the War Memorial of Korea. So anyways, head on south in the south of Seoul and explore this beautiful historical museum. Now this is quite different from the rest of the things we've done so far, however it is totally worth it. Now the War Memorial of Korea was opened in 1994 on the former site of the army headquarters, and this massive complex honors those who sacrificed their lives for the country during the Korean War. And it also teaches a lot of history regarding this war, and it shows the countries who helped out. They also have a pretty cool outdoor displays featuring tanks, planes, missile, helicopters, other weapons and so much more. What is this? Why do you need this? What do you need it for? While the galleries inside are packed with more personal stories, artifacts and even some immersive exhibits. Now I would set off around 2 to 3 hours to exploring, however you can easily spend a lot less time or a lot more. But anyways, once you're done at the War Memorial, we're gonna head just a teeny bit northeast up towards the famous Seoul Tower. Now Seoul Tower, also called the Namsam Tower, was originally built back in 1969 as a broadcasting tower. However, it is now a major tourist attraction located on Namsam Mountain, and it offers a 360-degree view of Seoul from its observatory deck, and this tower is going to give you some of the best views of a city you could ever ask for. I mean, just look at this view. Now there's also a lot you can do at this tower. You can walk around, enjoy the view, take the cable cart down to the city, or just enjoy a walk in a mountain park, or even eat a lovely dinner at the top of the Seoul Tower. And I would set off between 1.5 and 2 hours to explore this area. However, if you're going to be walking up to this tower, I would recommend you set off a bit more time, but if you want to save a bit of time and energy, you can also just take the bus straight up to the tower. So anyways, now after spending some time at famous busy locations, we're now going to do something a bit more chilled out. So anyways, then get yourself up to the Cheongyecheon stream/river. Now the Cheongyecheon stream is a shallow stream that runs through downtown Seoul, and a fun fact, it actually used to be covered up by a massive highway, but they uncovered it and restored it and its beautiful nature back in 2005, turning it into a peaceful, quiet, walkable path. Now it's more cool and relaxed during the day, but at night it really comes alive with lights, water features and projections and arches shown along the top of it. And it's an amazing place to just relax and slow down a bit. Now I highly recommend you come here in the afternoon, as when it gets dark outside, all the lights and attractions really brighten up, and the feeling of walking down this quiet stream in such a massive city is just so great. Now I would set off around half an hour to an hour and a half for just walking around there and relaxing, but you can very easily walk this path in just 30 minutes if you want to, but if you want to stop, have a look, take some pictures and relax a bit, then up towards an hour or maybe even an hour and a half should be plenty of time. But anyways, once you're done relaxing at this river, we're gonna head a teeny bit south down towards the main Myeongdong shopping street. Now this place is one big mix of food, shopping, music and lights, so once you get there, just explore the main street. Now you will find tons of Korean street food stalls selling all sorts of foods and snacks, and you will even be able to find live music being played and lots of other stalls selling pretty much anything, and it's a perfect place to end your time in Seoul. So anyways, grab some good food, enjoy the music and get yourself some souvenirs for your friends and family. So anyways guys, that is it for my 4-day Seoul itinerary. Now there was and still is so much to see in Seoul, and I feel like this itinerary should show you some of the best, popular and common sites in Seoul. So anyways, let me know what your favorite things to do and see in Seoul are down in the comments, and I will see you all in the next one. So anyways, goodbye.